Listen carefully. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to wake you up. Somewhere right now, there are people who doubted you, laughed at you, counted you out, and felt good doing it. They enjoyed watching you struggle. They enjoyed seeing you stay small. And if you're honest with yourself, a part of you still wants revenge. Not the weak kind. Not shouting. Not arguing. Not explaining. The real kind. The kind that lasts. The kind that hurts without you saying a single word. And here's the truth most people never understand: your rise is their punishment. Let me tell you something brutal. Talking back doesn't scare anyone. Complaining doesn't change anything. Trying to prove your point to people who already made up their mind just makes you look desperate. Weak people seek validation. Strong people seek domination. And domination doesn't come from noise. It comes from results. When you level up so hard that your existence reminds them of their own failure, that's when the real punishment begins. Think about it. Nothing hurts an enemy more than watching you win without them. Watching you become disciplined while they stay lazy. Watching your bank account grow while they keep blaming the system. Watching your confidence rise while they rot in insecurity. You don't need to attack them. Life will do it for you when you outgrow them. Silence plus success is lethal. Here's a hook most people can't swallow: the people who wronged you didn't make you weaker. They gave you fuel. Pain is either poison or power. Losers drink it and die slowly. Winners turn it into fire. Every insult, every betrayal, every moment you were underestimated is now raw material. Use it. Channel it. Let it harden you. Because comfort never built a king. Pressure does. You see, revenge driven by emotion makes you sloppy. You rush. You react. You lose control. But revenge driven by discipline, that's cold. That's calculated. That's permanent. While they're talking, you're training. While they're mocking, you're building. While they're distracted, you're focused. And one day, without warning, they look up and realize you're no longer in their league. That realization hits harder than any insult ever could. Understand this clearly: the world doesn't respect potential. It respects proof. Nobody cares what you were going to do. They care about what you did. And when your life becomes undeniable evidence of growth, that's when the tables turn. Suddenly, the same people who ignored you want your attention. The same people who doubted you want your approval. And that's when you win again, by not giving it to them. Let me be very clear. This isn't about ego. This is about standards. You raise your standards so high that anyone who couldn't rise with you gets left behind. You stop explaining. You stop seeking closure. You stop needing applause. Your progress becomes the message. Your discipline becomes the response. Your lifestyle becomes the answer to every doubt they ever had. Here's another hook. You don't need them to see you succeed. You need you to know you earned it. The real victory isn't their reaction. It's your transformation, the sleepless nights, the early mornings, the uncomfortable decisions, the sacrifices nobody clapped for. That's where power is built. And power doesn't announce itself. It shows up. As you rise, something interesting happens. The noise fades. The anger cools. The need for revenge disappears because you realize you're too busy winning to care. That's the irony. When you finally reach a level where you could look back, you don't want to anymore. Not because you forgave them, but because they no longer matter. Indifference is the final stage of domination. So if you're listening to this and you're still angry, good. Use it. If you're still hurt, good. Let it sharpen you. But don't waste another second trying to fight people who are already beneath where you're going. Build the body, build the mind, build the money, build the discipline. Make yourself so dangerous that life itself starts making room for you. The fastest way to lose power is to talk too much. Most people think strength comes from being loud, from defending themselves, from explaining their side of the story to anyone who will listen. That's a lie. Talking is what insecure people do when they don't have results yet. Real power is quiet. Real power doesn't argue, doesn't chase validation, and doesn't waste energy trying to be understood by people who already decided to misunderstand you. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you start leveling up. Here's a hard truth that hits most people in the ego. Nobody is waiting to be convinced by your words. The world doesn't pause to hear your reasons, your struggles, or your intentions. The world only reacts to outcomes. You can give a perfect explanation and still be ignored. You can make 1,000 excuses and still be broke, weak, and stuck. But the second your results change, the conversation changes automatically. That's not unfair. That's reality. Think about how dominance actually works. The most dangerous people in any room aren't the ones talking the most. They're the ones watching, calculating, and moving in silence. Noise is compensation. Silence is confidence. When you stop announcing your plans and start executing them, you take control of the narrative. People don't need updates. They need proof. And proof only comes from action stacked on action day after day. Here's the hook most people miss every time you explain yourself. You're subconsciously asking for permission. Permission to be respected. Permission to be understood. Permission to be validated. Winners don't ask for permission. They take space. They build leverage. They let success speak because success doesn't need translation. A stronger body, a sharper mind, a higher income. These things don't require explanation. They command respect instantly. Another uncomfortable truth, arguing keeps you on the same level as your enemies. When you respond emotionally, you lower yourself to their frequency. You give them attention, and attention is currency. Why would you pay people who doubted you? Why would you reward disrespect with your time and energy? The smartest move is to go silent and redirect everything into self-improvement. While they're busy talking about you, you're busy building something they can't touch. Dominating doesn't mean aggression. It means control. Control over your reactions, your schedule, your habits, your standards. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can talk. Very few people can stay disciplined when nobody is watching. That's where real separation happens. Early mornings, hard training, focused work, no applause, no announcements, just progress. And progress compounds quietly until one day it's impossible to ignore. Understand this, people only listen when you no longer need them to. The irony of power is that it arrives when you stop chasing it, when you stop proving yourself, when you stop explaining your pain. You don't need to tell people you've changed. They'll feel it in your posture, in your voice, in the way you move. Energy never lies, and disciplined energy is intimidating. There's a reason silence plus results feels so heavy to those who doubted you. It forces them to confront themselves. Your success becomes a mirror they didn't ask for. Every level you climb exposes the gap between who they are and who they could have been. And that gap hurts more than any argument ever could. You didn't insult them. You didn't attack them. You simply outworked them. And that's unforgivable to weak minds. So stop talking. Stop reacting. Stop explaining. Put that energy where it actually matters. Build something undeniable. Become so focused on execution that opinions fade into background noise. Let your discipline do the speaking. Let your consistency do the convincing. Because when your results arrive, they won't ask you questions. They'll already have their answer. Pain is not the problem. Confusion about pain is. Most people feel hurt, disrespected, betrayed, or underestimated and immediately ask the wrong question. Why did this happen to me? That question weakens you. It turns pain into a story, and stories turn into excuses. Strong people ask a different question. How do I use this? The moment you treat pain as fuel instead of a wound, the entire direction of your life changes. Here's a hook most people never hear. Comfort is more dangerous than suffering. Comfort makes you slow, soft, and predictable. Pain does the opposite. Pain wakes you up. Pain sharpens focus. Pain exposes what needs to be fixed, but only if you choose to process it correctly. If you sit in it, complain about it, or let it define you, pain poisons your mind. If you convert it into action, it becomes power. The difference is not the pain itself, but the response. Every insult you remember, every rejection that still stings, every moment you were laughed at carries energy. That energy doesn't disappear. It either eats you from the inside or pushes you forward. Weak people release it through anger, arguments, and emotional reactions. That release feels good for 5 minutes and costs them years. Strong people store it. They don't vent it. They invest it. They turn emotion into discipline and discipline into results. Understand this clearly. Excuses are the emotional refund of pain. When someone gets hurt and chooses excuses, they feel relieved, but they stay the same. I had a bad past. People were unfair. I didn't get support. All of that may be true, and all of it is useless. Reality does not reward fairness. It rewards effectiveness. The world doesn't ask what happened to you. It asks what you did with it. Here's another hook. Pain that isn't used will eventually control you. Unused pain turns into bitterness. Bitterness turns into entitlement. Entitlement turns into laziness disguised as intelligence. That's how people slowly decay while convincing themselves they're aware. Winners don't romanticize their trauma. They weaponize it. They let it harden their routines, not soften their standards. Turning pain into fuel requires structure, not motivation. Motivation fades. Structure doesn't. You wake up early whether you feel like it or not. You train even when the memory of failure is heavy in your chest. You work when your mind wants to escape. Each disciplined action drains pain and converts it into confidence. Confidence earned this way cannot be shaken because it wasn't borrowed from praise or comfort. It was forged. Most people wait for pain to go away before they act. That's a mistake. Pain doesn't leave until it's given a job. Give it one. Let it push you through the workout, through the late night, through the uncomfortable decision. Over time, something powerful happens. The same memories that once weakened you start to strengthen you. The past stops being an anchor and becomes an engine. There's a silent transformation that happens when you use pain correctly. You stop being reactive. You stop needing sympathy. You stop explaining your struggles. You develop a calm intensity that others can't understand. That intensity comes from knowing you survived something and turned it into progress. People feel that energy before you say a word. One day, without announcing it, you'll realize the pain that once defined you no longer controls you. It still exists, but it no longer owns space in your mind. It works for you now. It pushes you forward, sharp and focused. And that's when you understand the truth. Most people never reach. Nothing that hurt you was wasted. Most people think revenge is emotional, loud, impulsive, immediate. That's why they lose. Emotion burns fast and dies quickly. Discipline is different. Discipline is cold, patient, and relentless. Discipline doesn't rush. Discipline doesn't react. Discipline waits, builds, and strikes over time. And that's why discipline is the only form of revenge that actually lasts. Here's the hook most people never understand. Emotional revenge gives your enemy control. Disciplined revenge takes it away. The moment you react in anger, you're no longer leading, you're responding. You're playing their game on their timeline. Discipline flips the power dynamic. You stop reacting to what they did and start focusing on what you're becoming. And that shift alone separates winners from everyone else. Discipline is boring. That's why it works. There's nothing dramatic about waking up early every day, training consistently, eating clean, staying focused, and doing the work when nobody is watching. There's no applause for that, no instant satisfaction. But while others chase quick emotional relief, disciplined people are compounding results quietly. And compounding always beats intensity in the long run. Understand this: discipline is delayed revenge. It doesn't show up immediately, and that's why weak minds dismiss it. They want justice now, validation now, payback now. Strong minds are willing to wait. They know that time plus discipline creates distance, and distance creates dominance. When enough time passes, the gap becomes so wide that comparison itself becomes painful for the other side. Another hard truth: discipline hurts more than revenge ever could. It hurts to stay consistent when motivation is gone. It hurts to say no when comfort is available. It hurts to keep standards high when shortcuts are easy. But that pain is productive. That pain builds structure, confidence, and self-respect. Emotional revenge only creates chaos. Discipline creates order, and order always wins. When you choose discipline, you remove ego from the equation. You're no longer trying to prove a point. You're trying to build a system. Systems don't care about feelings. They care about execution, daily habits, repetition, precision. Over time, those systems transform your body, your mind, and your position in life. And transformation is the most intimidating response of all. Here's another hook. Disciplined people don't look angry. They look calm. That calmness is terrifying to those who wronged you. It tells them you're no longer emotionally accessible. You're no longer available for drama, arguments, or closure conversations. Your focus has shifted inward and upward. And once that happens, they lose their leverage over you completely. Discipline also rewires how you see yourself. Each time you do what you said you would do, especially when it's hard, you build self-trust. Self-trust turns into confidence. Confidence turns into presence. Presence turns into authority. None of that can be faked, and none of it can be taken away. That's why disciplined people don't need to intimidate. They already are. Most people underestimate how painful it is to watch someone they underestimated become consistent. Not lucky. not gifted, consistent, because consistency exposes excuses. Your discipline becomes a silent accusation. It says, you could have done this too. And that realization is heavier than any insult. Discipline doesn't announce itself, but it leaves evidence everywhere, in how you move, in how you speak, in how you choose. People notice when you stop being available for nonsense. They notice when your standards rise. They notice when your life starts aligning. And by the time they fully understand what happened, it's already too late to catch up. This is why discipline is the ultimate revenge. It doesn't destroy others directly. It makes them irrelevant. It removes you from their reach, their opinions, their influence. You don't beat them by attacking. You beat them by becoming someone they can no longer touch. Most people waste their lives trying to fight enemies they should have simply outgrown. They stay stuck in the same mental room, arguing with people who are comfortable being average. That's the real trap. Not the enemy itself, but staying small enough to keep them relevant. Growth is the only move that ends every argument without a single word being spoken. Here's the hook most people don't want to accept when someone doubts you. It's usually because they can't imagine themselves doing what you're capable of. Their limits become the lens through which they judge you. If you stay near them, those limits start to feel normal. If you grow past them, their opinions collapse. Distance destroys doubt, and growth is what creates that distance. Outgrowing people doesn't require confrontation. It requires elevation. You don't need closure conversations. You don't need to clear the air. Those are emotional traps that keep you tied to the past. The most effective way to deal with disrespect is to become unavailable to it. Raise your standards so high that the people who once questioned you can't even reach you anymore. There's a brutal truth here. Many people who doubted you weren't enemies. They were benchmarks. They showed you the ceiling of their ambition, not yours. If you stay in their environment too long, you inherit their mindset. Their fear of risk becomes your hesitation. Their comfort becomes your cage. Growth demands separation, and separation always feels lonely at first. That loneliness is a sign you're moving in the right direction. Here's another hook. Outgrowing people feels arrogant only to those who refuse to grow themselves. You're not obligated to shrink to keep others comfortable. You're not required to explain your ambition to people who settled. When your standards rise, some relationships won't survive. And that's not betrayal, that's alignment correcting itself. As you grow, something interesting happens. The same people who once doubted you start feeling uneasy around you. Not because you changed your personality, but because you changed your pace. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your progress highlights their stagnation. You don't have to say anything. Your life does the speaking, and it speaks loudly. Growth creates a psychological gap that's impossible to fake. When you start operating at a higher level, conversations change. Priorities shift. Complaints sound smaller. Drama feels childish. And slowly, you realize you're no longer in the same game. That's when you stop reacting emotionally to old disrespect. You've outgrown the need to prove anything. Most people never experience this because they confuse loyalty with stagnation. They stay connected to people who drain them out of habit, guilt, or fear of being judged. But loyalty without growth is self-sabotage. Real loyalty starts with loyalty to your future. Anyone who can't respect that was never on your side to begin with. Here's the hard part nobody prepares you for. Outgrowing people can hurt more than being doubted. Letting go of familiar faces, shared history, and old versions of yourself is uncomfortable. But comfort is expensive. It costs potential. It costs progress. It costs the version of you that could have existed if you were brave enough to move on. When you finally outgrow everyone who once doubted you, you don't feel anger anymore. You feel clarity. You see how small the world was when you allowed others to define your limits. And you understand something powerful. The fastest way to silence doubt isn't success alone. It's becoming someone who no longer hears it. Anger feels powerful in the moment, but it's one of the weakest tools you can rely on. It makes noise, not progress. It creates reactions, not results. Most people think expressing anger shows strength, but in reality, it exposes a lack of control. The strongest individuals don't shout, don't threaten, and don't explain. They let their results speak because results carry weight that emotion never will. Here's the hook most people miss. Anger wants attention. Results demand respect. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can complain. Anyone can tell a story about how they were wrong. Very few people can stay focused long enough to build something undeniable. And when you build something undeniable, you don't need to say anything at all. The room changes the moment you enter it. Anger is loud but temporary. Results are quiet but permanent. Think about it. How many arguments have you seen actually change outcomes? Almost none. But a changed body, a disciplined routine, financial growth, mental sharpness, those things shift how people treat you instantly. Not because you asked them to, but because reality forces them to. The world doesn't negotiate with results. Here's a hard truth: anger keeps you emotionally attached to the people who wronged you. Every emotional reaction is proof they still occupy space in your mind. Results do the opposite. They free you. They move your focus forward. When your energy is invested in growth, there's no room left for resentment. Progress crowds out bitterness. Letting results speak requires patience, and patience is rare. People want to be heard now. They want recognition now. They want justice now. But real leverage is built slowly. Quiet mornings, repetitive work, boring discipline. No audience, no validation, just execution. That's why most people quit. It doesn't feel powerful at first, but power doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. Another hook worth remembering: results are unbiased. They don't care about your past, your emotions, or your intentions. They reflect exactly what you did. That's why they're so convincing. When someone sees the outcome, they don't ask for your explanation. They don't need context. The evidence stands on its own, and evidence ends debates. As your results grow, something interesting happens. People who once ignored you start paying attention. People who once doubted you become quieter. Not because they changed their minds willingly, but because they're forced to adjust to reality. You didn't argue with them. You didn't confront them. You simply removed their ability to dismiss you. Results also change how you see yourself. Each measurable improvement builds self-respect, and self-respect changes behavior. You stop tolerating nonsense. You stop engaging in pointless conversations. You stop needing approval, not because you're arrogant, but because you're grounded. Confidence built on results doesn't need to be defended. Most people never reach this stage because they confuse emotional release with progress. Vetting feels productive, but it leaves your life unchanged. Working quietly feels slow, but it reshapes everything. That's the trade-off. Short-term relief versus long-term dominance. Only one of those actually changes your position in the world. When results finally speak, they speak louder than anything you could have said in anger. They don't insult. They don't attack. They don't explain. They simply exist, and that existence forces a response. People either rise to your level or fade into the background. You didn't push them there. Your progress did. This is why controlled, consistent action will always outperform emotional reactions. Anger fades, words disappear, but results remain standing silently long after the noise is gone. Most people think victory looks like being noticed. It doesn't. The real win is being untouched. Indifference is not weakness, it's the highest form of control. When someone can no longer provoke you, distract you, or pull an emotional reaction out of you, they've lost completely. And here's the hook most people never realize: the moment you stop caring is the moment you truly win. At first, you want them to see you succeed. You want acknowledgement. You want regret in their eyes. That's natural. But that desire is still a chain. It means they're still living rent-free in your head. As long as your motivation is tied to their reaction, you're not free. You're improving, yes, but you're still emotionally connected to the past. Indifference is when that connection snaps. Here's the uncomfortable truth: caring too much keeps you small. It keeps you reactive. It keeps you looking sideways instead of forward. When you finally stop caring about what they think, something powerful happens. Your energy consolidates. Your focus sharpens. You stop wasting mental bandwidth on people who are no longer relevant to where you're going. That's when momentum accelerates. Indifference doesn't happen overnight. It's earned. It comes from stacking wins quietly, from keeping promises to yourself, from building a life that demands your full attention. When your schedule is full of purpose, there's no space left for resentment. When your goals are heavy, the past becomes light. And when your standards rise, old opinions stop registering. Another hook people misunderstand: Indifference is not forgiveness. You don't need to forgive to move on. You just need to upgrade. Forgiveness is emotional. Indifference is strategic. It's not about being the bigger person. It's about being the more focused one. You're not above them morally. You're ahead of them mentally. Watch what happens when you stop reacting. The same people who tried to get under your skin lose interest. Why? Because they were feeding on your response. Silence starves insecurity. Calm confuses manipulators. When there's nothing left to pull, they move on, and you don't even notice because you're too busy building. Indifference also changes how you walk into rooms. You don't enter seeking approval. You don't scan faces for validation. You're present, grounded, and unaffected. That presence is intimidating, not loud, not aggressive, just solid. People feel it immediately. It signals that your confidence doesn't depend on them, and that's unsettling to anyone who thrives on control. Most people never reach this level because they're addicted to emotional drama. They confuse intensity with importance. They think caring deeply makes them strong. It doesn't. Control makes you strong. The ability to stay focused when others are chaotic. The ability to move forward when others are stuck replaying old stories. That's power. Here's the turning point. One day you'll hear their name and feel nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no urge to prove anything. Just neutrality. That's not emptiness. That's dominance. It means they no longer have access to your nervous system. They can't disrupt your mood. They can't slow your progress. They're finished, whether they know it or not. Indifference is the final upgrade because it frees you completely. Your actions are no longer reactions. Your ambition is no longer revenge. Your discipline is no longer fueled by resentment. It's fueled by clarity. You're not running from the past anymore. You're running towards something bigger. And once you reach that state, something irreversible happens. You stop competing with people. You start competing with your previous self. The noise fades. The ego relaxes. The mission sharpens. You don't need to win against anyone else because you're already winning where it actually matters, inside your own mind. Remember this and remember it well. You don't need revenge. You don't need justice. You don't need an apology. All you need is growth. Because when you rise high enough, the people who tried to bury you will be forced to look up. And that moment, when they realize you turned everything they did to you into success, that moment is their punishment. Now go to work.